All right, let's talk 2022 NFL Draft wide receivers. I'm going to give you my top 10 rankings. We've been doing a bunch of scouting for the last couple months. I finally have my 1.0. Okay, so this list could definitely change as we learn more about these players and as more information comes out, the combine. But this is my first top 10 list. I'll start with an honorable mention. Some of you might be upset, but John Mechie is not in the top 10. However, I did want to give him a little shout out at number 11. So let's start at number 10. George Pickens out of Georgia, 6'3", 200 pounds, coming out as a junior. He's 20 years old, probably the biggest raw talent. This guy is mad talented, but he could just never put a full amazing season together. And a lot of people thought that would be this year, but then he tore his ACL right before the season. Did appear in the national championship game, made a really, really good catch. His own coach called him undisciplined. So these are some hurdles that he's going to have to get through in this draft process. His size is ideal for an X wide receiver in the NFL. Big player, like I said, 6'3", 200 pounds. That is what you want on the outside. An alpha, a true alpha wide receiver. Smooth route runner. He's got fluid movements and very, very strong hands. Can win the one-on-one balls. Makes a ton of circus catches. Honestly, Pickens is a do-it-all wide receiver. There's not much that he can't do on the field. So let's talk about some weaknesses. Like we said, there was some disciplinary issues. Some people view him as hot-headed. I think that can be good if it's expressed in the right way, but it's not been expressed in the right way so far, and it's hurt the team. It's hurt his own career, and that might mean some GMs might be questionable on him, and they might pass on him instead. You also have to have slight worries about his durability after the ACL injury. The combine is going to be massive for Pickens. If he goes out and puts up an amazing combine, you could see him shoot up boards, maybe even into the first round. I mean, right now he's probably a second, third round pick, but if he has an amazing combine, you could see that mock draft shoot straight up to the first round. If we're talking about pro comps, I've heard a lot of people say Calvin Johnson. I understand it. I can see what they're saying, but I more realistically would like to say a more fluid Mike Williams. And honestly, he has such a high upside. So if you're looking in rookie drafts, he could be someone that you get maybe end of second round. I don't know exactly what happens from now until then, but he could be a real steal in a lot of dynasty rookie drafts. The one thing I kept noticing when I was watching his film was some people are just born to do certain things. You know, it's like almost watching Pablo Picasso paint when you watch this guy play football. I mean, he looks so smooth all the time. He's just such a talent. I hope he can figure it out and land in a really good spot. Here's some teams I think he could fit well with. The Patriots, Lions, Eagles, Saints. The Patriots are my favorite fit because I think if he's under that Bill Belichick, regimen, if you will, he could really succeed with some guidance like that. At number 9, we have a sleeper alert in Sky Moore. Not a lot of people know this name, and that's probably because he played at Western Michigan. Who watches Western Michigan games? I mean, no one. He's very under the radar, and he might be a draft steal if he keeps falling in these mock drafts. Every NFL team wants a player like Sky Moore. In 2021, 95 receptions, just under 1,300 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Let's talk about some of his strengths. He has elite speed. When I say elite, I mean elite. 40 time likely in the 4.3s. Great short area burst and explosiveness. Consistently catches the ball. Especially the ones that he's supposed to, the balls that you expect him to catch. He doesn't have those silly drops on tape, and he plays with a lot of heart. I mean, this is someone who just really loves the game, puts his heart and soul into it. There are some weaknesses, including his size. He's 5'11", 195 pounds, so he's not exactly the tallest or the bulkiest player, and he does have a limited route tree. However, I do think he can expand that in the pros. If I was to give him a pro comp, shout out to all the Chiefs fans out there, Dexter McCluster. I don't know if you guys remember this guy, Dexter McCluster, real shifty guy who could be a game breaker on any play. However, I do think that Sky has better IQ and better hands. If we're talking about NFL teams that I see him fitting alongside of, I would love for him to be like a second or third option in an offense, but someone who could contribute, 5 to 6 times, big plays. I'm thinking Titans, Bills, Chiefs, Falcons. At number 8, I have Wan'Dale Robinson, another sleeper alert out of Kentucky, 5'11", 185 pounds, so definitely on the lighter side and smaller frame. He's coming out as a junior, 21 years old. In 2021, he put up 104 receptions, on 1,334 yards and 7 touchdowns. Interesting name because he transferred from Nebraska before the season started to Kentucky. It definitely panned out. I mean, he put up some massive numbers and got his name in the NFL draft conversation. I view him as a true weapon. I think he can be a weapon on any NFL team. Extremely shifty. You will notice that on his tape. Almost like Kadarius Toney-esque type shifty. Sudden movements, which make him very, very hard to tackle. Great speed and very impressive short area explosiveness. This guy is lightning in a bottle. Think about that Kadarius Toney type of player. He does have some weaknesses, which include his size and weight. Likely going to be limited to like a slot type role in the NFL, but that's still someone that can produce good fantasy numbers. Didn't really produce at Nebraska. I mean, was he outplayed or was he just overlooked? I like to think that he was overlooked, but it does beg to question. If I have to give a pro comp, and I hate that I'm even saying a big name like this, but Tyreek Hill, honestly, he's not as fast as Tyreek Hill by any means. The way that he moves and in and out of his routes, the way that he can evade tacklers in the open field, he looks like Tyreek Hill. NFL teams, I think he could fit on. I'm thinking of the Browns. They could really use an electric playmaker. Same with the Eagles, Pats, Falcons, and Jags. I mean, let's get Trevor Lawrence a weapon. At number 7, and I'm sorry, this is probably going to upset some of you, but I have Drake London at number 7 out of USC. He's 6'5", 210 pounds. Coming out as a junior, he's 20 years old. In 2021, he had 88 receptions, 1,084 yards, and 7 touchdowns. However, he did fracture his ankle with 4 games remaining, so those stats could have looked better. I know that you guys are probably upset that he's this low, but I will explain. He was overshadowed by Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown for his first 2 seasons. So this is really the first year in 2021 where you saw him as a dominant target in this offense. He also played basketball at USC, dual sport athlete, big body. I mean, like I said, 6'5". His size is probably his best attribute along with his contested catch ability. This is someone 6'5". I mean, you can throw up any one-on-one ball and Drake London's probably going to come down with it. Think about Mike Evans in those one-on-one scenarios. End zone threat. Think about it. If you're on the 5-yard line, on the 10-yard line, you just find those big body weapons, and that is Drake London. He can be a threat in the end zone. And he does play strong in the open field. When he catches the ball on screens or on slants, he is a very hard person to tackle. He almost has that bulldog mentality. However, let's talk about some of his weaknesses. He's not very fast. He doesn't have good speed. And that does worry me a little bit in the NFL. I also don't think he's a very good route runner at this point. I don't think he can create separation all that well. So those are things that he can improve on. However, it will take a good head coach and dedication from him to improve in those areas. I am a little bit worried about the fractured ankle. Will we see the same player? Honestly, you'll learn more about us on this channel as we talk about people that we prefer. And when it comes to Drake London, he's not really the type of wide receiver that I or Badaki, both of us on this channel, would prefer on our team. We prefer someone who has speed, is able to create separation, runs clean routes over someone like Drake London. Doesn't mean that he's not a good wide receiver and that he's not going to be very fantasy relevant, because he could if he lands in the right spot. We just prefer those types of players instead. A lot of people have compared him to Mike Evans. I can see it. I don't think he's as fast as Mike Evans, but I can definitely see the comparison. Some teams that I could see him fitting on: the Eagles, Patriots, Raiders, Falcons, Jags, all teams that could use a big body quarterbacks who honestly want this type of player. Think about Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is desperate for someone to help him in the red zone. Same with Mac Jones in New England. So those are some good fits for him. At number 6, we have Jahan Dotson. This is another sleeper alert out of Penn State. He's 5'11", 184 pounds, coming out as a senior. In 2021, he caught 91 balls for 1,182 yards, 12 touchdowns, and he also contributed with 1 rushing touchdown as well. There is something special about Jahan Dotson. When you watch the tape, you can see the pure talent ooze in every play. I hope that he lands in a situation where he can be that kind of low-key factor. I don't want him to be like the alpha on a team, but I think he can really succeed as the low-key X factor on a good team. I do think that he's going to rise in mock drafts this season. You'll see him closer and closer to the first round. As of right now, I haven't seen him in the first round, but I do think he'll end up there when it comes to draft day. Let's talk about some of his strengths. Great speed, not elite, just under that elite category, but still very good speed. I was honestly impressed with his contested catch ability despite the size. He made some jaw-dropping catches, especially some one-handed catches you'll see on film. Not many people can do. He has a good route tree, high IQ player, and he produced massive numbers in 2021. If you can't produce in college, you're not going to be able to produce in the NFL. He does struggle versus press coverage. That is something that worries me a little bit because of his size. He might be limited by his size, and he might have to operate exclusively in the slot if he can't get past that. Could be bullied off the line by some of these bigger NFL cornerbacks. I did expect him to be better in the yak category for his size and his speed, the type of player. I expected to see more out of that, but I didn't. Doesn't mean that he can't do it. I just expected to be impressed by that area of his game. Some pro comps that I could give you: Tyler Lockett, Deontay Johnson. I mean, these are very, very good players in the NFL who are both very fantasy relevant. I do see him as a combination of both of those players. So I do love Jahan Dotson, real sleeper. Teams that he could fit in: Browns, Chiefs, Falcons. I think he could be a great asset in all of those teams. I would prefer the Chiefs because I think he'd be such a good fit there for Patty. At number 5, we have David Bell out of Purdue. And this is another sleeper alert. 6'2", 205 pounds. He's coming out as a junior in 2021. He balled out. 93 receptions, 1,286 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Some backstory to David Bell: he played his high school state championship game despite spraining his ankle. Doctor said don't play. He played. He chose Purdue so his grandma could go to his games because he really loves his family. And he was a 4-star recruit out of high school, constantly overlooked, but always working hard. This is the type of player, type of person that you just want to see succeed. And because of that work ethic, I really think he's one of the biggest sleepers in this draft. All this guy does is produce. He puts up numbers and numbers. I mean, he was kind of overshadowed by Rondale Moore a little bit last year, but this guy produces all the time. Strong in the open field, smooth player who's confident in his movements. He's confident, which shows a high IQ, and he genuinely loves the game. That's someone that you want on your team. That's someone that GMs want on their team. And that kind of player, coaches want to see them succeed. And I really do believe that if he gets in a good organization, he's going to succeed. There are some weaknesses. Could work on catching with his hands a little bit more consistently. And number 2, speed could limit him on broken plays. He definitely doesn't have that breakaway, game-changing speed, but he does so many things really, really well. Player comps, I can think of Allen Robinson. David Bell is very similar to Allen Robinson when you watch his film. I think he's someone who could really succeed in the short to intermediate part of the passing game. He could really help a quarterback there. And he also reminded me a little bit of Keenan Allen. Some teams that I could see him fitting well on are the Lions, Saints, Vikings, and Jags. All could use a weapon like David Bell. I really, really like him. He might go up further in my rankings. At number 4, and this is probably going to surprise some of you, but don't hate me. Don't comment that you hate me. I have Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. I know this is a lot of people's number 1 overall wide receiver in this draft. I couldn't get there. I will explain. I still like him. Out of Ohio State, 6 foot, 190 pounds. In 2021, put up 70 receptions, 1,058 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown, which doesn't really jump out to you. I mean, the 12 touchdowns definitely do, but you have to keep in mind, he produced really well when you consider he shared the spotlight with Chris Olave and Smith Njigba. So all that being considered, I think he produced pretty well. He is slightly undersized, but something that you notice about him, he's always open. 135.4 quarterback rating for quarterbacks when they target Wilson. So he's a quarterback's best friend at this point. I do think he has the highest floor in this draft, but I don't think he has the highest ceiling. I don't think he's going to be that player who's a dominant wide receiver for 10 plus years. And I could be wrong. Let's talk about some of his strengths first. Easily creates separation. Easily. I mean, there are times when you're watching his film and the defender is completely lost. He has an expansive route tree, very high IQ as a route runner. Those are all things that we really, really like. Very good hands. Honestly, he catches everything that's thrown his way. Some of the catches that you see on tape are very impressive, especially in traffic. Wins one-on-ones more than I thought he would, considering his size. I mean, you have to admit, he is slightly undersized. Let's talk about some of his weaknesses: height and weight for an outside wide receiver. So I do question if he can operate on the outside. Didn't really impress me as a yak wide receiver. For the type of player that he is, I expected to see more out of his film there. And the way the NFL is moving, I just thought that's something that he would be better at. And right now I don't see it on film. You can let me know if I'm wrong. Everyone's calling him a burner. I don't see that speed. I don't think he's a 4.3 guy. I could be wrong. We do need to see the combine. Like I said, things could change. I don't think he's a 4.3 guy. I think he's more like a 4.45, maybe 4.46. That might be too harsh. We'll find out when the combine comes, but I liked his tape, but I didn't fall in love with him as a player like everyone else has. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. When I watched the tape, I thought he did a lot of things really, really well, but there was nothing about his game that made me say, wow, this guy's going to transform a franchise. If we look at pro comps, Devonta Smith, I know he just came out, but he's the one that reminded me the most. Saints, think about that. They could definitely use a playmaker, especially with Michael Thomas likely on his way out. The Bills could use a player like this, maybe to replace Cole Beasley's role. The Falcons, let's get some help for Kyle Pitts. And the Packers, this is assuming Roger stays, but I think he's gone. At number 3, we have Chris Olave out of Ohio State, Garrett Wilson's teammate. He's 6'1", 189 pounds. Last year, he had 65 receptions for 936 yards and 13 touchdowns. Again, you have to keep in mind, those stats would have looked a lot better if there wasn't a Wilson or a Smith and Jigba on these teams. A lot of people thought he would have come out last year. He didn't do so. I don't think it hurt or helped his draft capital. However, I do think he will go in the first round. Something that I love about him as a player is you constantly see him improve season after season. He's becoming a better player every year at Ohio State. Something that will automatically just burst out when you're watching his tape is this dude's a route running king. He has a very quick release. There's so many times you're watching his tape and defenders are, where's he gone? Where's he gone? Easily creates separation. He has an expansive route tree and he's produced big numbers. This is key. He's produced big numbers, not with one quarterback, but with 2, which gives me hope and belief that he can do that in the NFL as well. He can continue to operate the way he has with another quarterback. Quick dynamic burst, which allow him to get to his top speed quickly. Now, no, he doesn't have the 4.3 speed, but he's got such a good acceleration and burst that he gets to that top speed very quickly, which is something that really helps him as a route runner. And he plays with a ton of passion. You can see it on tape. Some of his weaknesses, you would like to see a little bit more muscle and mass on someone who has a 6'1 frame and doesn't really blow you away as a yak wide receiver. Both Wilson and Olave, for me at least, didn't really blow me away in that area. I love Olave. His tape consistently reminded me of one player in particular. Let me know if you agree. It's Calvin Ridley. I really see him as a Calvin Ridley type player in this league. And some people have even said Will Fuller. I can see the shades of Will Fuller in his game. I would love to see him on a team like the Jags, like the Saints, Patriots, even the Lions. And number 2, I have Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. He's 6'3", 225 pounds. Coming out as a junior, 66 receptions for 1,104 yards this year, 11 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. This guy's a real do-it-all wide receiver. Stats might not impress you all that much, but you have to keep in mind the type of offense that Arkansas ran. It wasn't really a pass-heavy offense, which did hinder his numbers. He's got the body to be a dominant wide receiver on the outside, can make any catch against anyone. Back shoulder, one-handed, in traffic. He's got super, super strong hands. He's not Deebo Samuel in the open field, but you can see sprinkles of Deebo in his yak game, if you will. Versatile player. I mean, you can line him up in the slot, on the outside, in the backfield, similar to Deebo. I'm not saying he's Deebo. I'm not saying that, but he's a true X factor. He does need to improve on some of the technical aspects of his route running. You can notice that a little bit. It's not as crisp as you would want it to be. And there are some questions of if he can create separation in the NFL. I think he can, but he doesn't have that elite speed. So that is a question that we do need to see answered. I'm going to pro comp him to Alshon Jeffrey. I think he's a quicker, faster Alshon Jeffrey. Some people have said DK Metcalf. I can definitely see where you're coming from there. I think he would be great on the Raiders, Falcons. I'm always going to say Jags because the Jags just need someone from this draft. The Lions and the Eagles as well could really use him. And my number 1 wide receiver is Jameson Williams out of Alabama. He's 6'2", 189, 79 receptions this year, 1,572 yards and 15 touchdowns. I am obsessed with Jameson Williams. Transferred from Ohio State before this year to play with Alabama, and he absolutely broke out. Then he tore his ACL in the national championship game. but this is a game-breaking player, a true X factor, elite speed. This guy can score on any touch, great size. He's a route running technician. Think about Jerry Jeudy. His routes are so crisp, quick feet, super shifty, succeeds in the yak game with his speed and elusiveness, extends plays in the open field, produces big numbers, but the speed is game-breaking speed, people. I mean, this guy's probably going to be in the 4.3s. The weakness is he going to be the same player after the ACL? I think he will be. We have seen players recover from this type of injury, but that is something that we do have to ask. I have no doubt that he would be the number one wide receiver off the board in this year's draft if it wasn't for the injury. I mean, he still might be. Every NFL team needs a game breaker like Jameson Williams. If I'm going to comp him, this is my comp, and I think it's very accurate. Deshaun Jackson, Jerry Jeudy, and Hollywood Brown, a combination of those three players. Can you imagine him in the NFL? Let's say on the Saints, the Raiders, the Chiefs, Falcons. I'm going to say Jacksonville. I really think he could be a great weapon for Trevor Lawrence. This is my top 10. Let me know in the comments. You got any questions or do you disagree? It's okay. It's only 1.0. Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch
now,
it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.